Hey everyone, does this work? Yeah? No, not really. Okay. Hi, we're going to be talking about general cultural differences around the world. It's a bit more sort of vague than some of you may have gone into, but we've thought since this class is all about comparing cultural differences, dealing with them in a day-to-day situation, as well as obviously in a business environment, we think obviously there's key things about each country that all of us are from or have been to that might be interesting to know if you want to do business in that country. What we've also done to be quite interesting is we've all done each other's countries from an outsider perspective, looking at blogs, expats, websites, and talking to people who've worked in those countries. And then obviously we've verified it with the people who've been there to check it's all right. So we've done 4 main areas, obviously China, Japan, the USA and the UK. Obviously, these are not depicting, obviously, the whole of the USA, the whole of Europe, the whole of China. This is just like a vague outline of some areas where it could be helpful. It's just random tidbits that might be quite useful in the future. I'm going to talk about China. So there's a lot of information, obviously, as you all know, how to do business in China, but this is just some of the stuff that I found especially relevant for US expats and UK expats that they've been given on blogs and such. So obviously Guanxi being a big one, massive difference from the UK and the US. Be friends, lots of drinking, going out, you have to have the bond. Otherwise, there's no point in doing business. If you haven't got the bond, if you don't trust each other, you're not together, there's no point in doing business. Obviously, this also incorporates into after-work entertainment and so on. Going out, eating a lot, drinking a lot, so on and so forth. Obviously, a big thing is hierarchy, which can be quite different for a lot of different countries. So very formal, avoid too much humour when you're in a meeting. Also, the thing about eye contact was quite new for me because in England, if you're talking to someone and you don't look into their eyes, it's like you're either lying or you're avoiding questions or something. So the fact that the Chinese don't do it, it's more of a sign of respect, which for me was quite interesting to find out. Obviously, a big one for most countries is try and have an intermediary if you're doing business in China, because you're not going to get very far if you're just a bunch of foreigners trying to invade and make a business. Obviously, face is the big thing with Chinese. Saving face, trying to keep calm, always showing that you know what you're doing, what you're about, and trying not to make yourself look stupid or make anyone else look stupid or angry or anything else, basically. Yeah, trying to hide yourself. Try not to reveal too much about yourself, but in a different way to what I would say, again, from the UK perspective. For example, it's quite normal for Chinese to come up to other Westerners or other people and ask, how much do you earn? You know, oh, you look, how much do you weigh? Like, these are questions that you would never, ever ask in the UK. It would be considered horrifically rude and no one would talk to you again. But then the Chinese would not really reveal that much about themselves personally, like what their interests and hobbies are, quite as much unless you got to know them. Obviously, gift giving is really common and always has to be reciprocated in business culture. I really like the idea of the iron rooster. If you can't give something that's too tight or too frugal, it doesn't cost too little, because it's seen as getting a good gift out of them is like getting a feather out of an iron rooster. It can't be done. So that's like the worst thing to be if you're in a business relationship. Also, to give someone a clock symbolises like it's their funeral or somebody's funeral, apparently. Am I right? Yeah. So that's a really bad thing to do if you're trying to give someone a gift and bond with people. Obviously, meetings, it's kind of similar to a lot of other cultures. Made in advance. Obviously, everyone knows what's going on between each companies. Business cards. And trying to be patient. Obviously, I think that's quite a big one for Westerners, because when we get excited about topics, we get louder, we get a bit more energetic, we maybe get a bit angry about a debate topic, and that's totally okay. But they're saying in a lot of these blogs, they're saying if you show too much emotion, it can show that you've lost control, and then you will look weak to the people you're doing business with. So now we're going to move on to the business culture in Japan.
Okay. Let's move on. Japan, another Asia country. I will give you 4 keywords and highlights for the Japan for my findings, which are hierarchy, bowl, food, and working attitude. Okay, social hierarchy is very important in Japan. From my experience working with Japanese colleagues, they are all very respect to their senior or the employee who joined the company previous to him or her. So I think it's a very common culture in Japan, and they probably they could work. Maybe they are very elder people, and they are also very with the respectful for the in the colleague team. And bow, this is very interesting. Japanese people would like to bow for everything. For example, thank you for your coming. Welcome. Welcome again. See you. Okay, I'm sorry, maybe I'm not very specialized on the bow, but there's a very important manner before you're meeting people. Instead of shaking hands, so bow is very highlights in doing business with Japanese person. Oh, food. Whatever you agree or not, I like Japanese food. I think they are very healthy, and they also very good for sharing the nutrition. And I have to point out there are not very spicy food in Japan. It's very different from China. I think it's very suitable flavors compared with the local food in other countries of Asia. Attitude to work. In most of the Asia country, I think Japanese culture is very respect their working. They put honor and hard work to their job, and compared to the Chinese counterpart, Japanese are very like to be more hardworking in their culture. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Grace. So next is my part. So we should look at American. So there are some topics I will talk about: the time, entertainment, work, and labor rights and gifts. So firstly, we can see a clock in the left side. So on time is quite important compared to Japanese bar. So maybe the most important thing when you first time meet with your customer and your colleagues, on time is the most thing you have to pay attention to. So 5 o'clock is 5 o'clock, not 5 to 10 or 10 past 5. So we have to to be on time to avoid waste other people's time. So Americans think it's quite important to use their time more efficiently, and they will for time slip away without some return. They will feel very angry on that. So next, for entertainment in the business activities, we would like to play the golf. Yeah. So if you ask a CEO, they will tell you the business American is a golf. Golf is an independent way that puts you in a social relationship. So you can get very close to each other. So camaraderie is not the same meaning of the 关系, but it will keep you be close with your customer and your colleagues. And compared to Japan's hard work, I think American company was more emphasis on the smart working. So they want the staff work more efficient, more smart. And relationship is not the most important thing. It's not that important in American company, even in American culture. They will search out certifications of your past performance rather than just evaluation of colleague through the society activities. And in China and Japan, when you work in a company, so it's very important to keep a good relationship with your boss and your colleagues. But in American, there's a labor union, so they will protect your rights. So my colleague will tell you it's not important who you report to and who is your boss, just do the work right. And the last thing I wanted to share with you is the gifts. In China, normally when we want to enhance our relationship, we will give very expensive gifts and very, gift is quite important to show our respect and to show our kindness. But in American, gifts is not expect in the business education activities, and the gift should be less than $25 in law. So if you give a very expensive gift, it will be a legal issue. So we will pay attention on that. So thanks.
All right, thanks, Clark. So I'm going to finish this up with talking about the business culture in the UK. So in terms of meetings, Clark mentioned it, that it's very important to be on time, if not a little early, to most meetings. There are very strict planning that goes into a lot of the meetings, as well as strict rituals and routines. Plans, as I mentioned, are made a long time in advance, and there are very copious notes that are taken during and before and after a meeting, and those are spread out between the meeting planners, the meeting attendees, and so forth. And also, it is also expected that any major decisions made at the meetings are well established, well documented, and well spread out. In terms of communication, in the UK, understatement is a very big factor to take into account. A lot of times you need to really weigh what the person from the UK is saying to you in terms of whether they like your idea, if it needs improvement, or if it needs some major revisions. And people tend to do business primarily in English, and they don't really know too much business languages in terms of other languages besides English. Doing business arrangements, they aren't really set in stone until a contract is agreed upon and written down. There is not a lot of importance laid on guanxi, and keeping the stiff upper lip means there is not a lot of physical or emotional displays out in public or at the workplace. So there is that fine separation between work and your personal life. So what does it all mean to us as future managers in a very globalized world? It's important to understand the dynamics of the future business relationship, whether it's a short-term relationship or a long-term relationship. And also, there also needs to be a certain level of open-mindedness and understanding when going into a different culture or when working with people from different cultures, no matter if they're your superiors or your counterparts or your subordinates. And also to be open to